Here in Psalm 65, one of the verses acclaims to God, "You have crowned the year with your bounty." Sometimes people have to say, "Lord, you have crowned, let's say, 20 years with your bounty." And sometimes we might say, "Lord, you have crowned however long it takes from a great-grandmother to a great-grandson." That time span, God crowns with his bounty. And other times we might say, "Lord, you have crowned 2 or 3 days with your bounty." God works on all these different time scales: decades, multi-generations, and days. And I want to talk about that. And to encourage us all to hang in there with prayer, hang in there with trusting God. So I want to start in the middle with God crowning 20 years with his bounty. This is a story I heard a few days ago, and the woman who told it to me gave me permission to share it. One person from whom this woman gets some professional services has been a lapsed Catholic, and something happened in her life 20-some years ago, if not further back. But at least for as long as the woman I talked to, the time span she's known the person is 20 years. And for whatever reason, that other person didn't not only stop going to Mass, but apparently didn't want to have anything to do with the Catholic Church. And so the friend of mine has been praying for this other person. And with apparent no change. And then just in the past couple of weeks, I guess, or a month or so, something happened, and some religious sisters, religious women, some nuns, went to visit this lady, talked with her, and out of that conversation and the grace of God working through the nuns, she said that she was open to talking with a priest. So my friend, who's been praying for 20 years, just told me a couple of days ago, it's taken God 20 years to answer my prayers. But that other person talked with the priest, whatever happened, and she is going to start re-sparking her faith and re-entering into some kind of practice of her Catholicism. So one might say, God, you have crowned 20 years with your bounty, particularly through the patient, persevering cooperation of the friend of mine who has hung in there and prayed for this other person for 20 years. Now, stretching it to a couple of generations, on the 13th of July, it was the feast day of St. Henry. And I know this story because I used to be the associate pastor, or parochial vicar is the technical term, at St. Henry Parish in Gresham. And so St. Henry was known for being a man of faith and not being a tyrant or a despot or anything like that. But I gather his parents and uncles and aunts, and then his grandparents and all that, those generations of this royal family, could have been Game of Thrones or something. Lots of people killing each other and kidnapping each other and backstabbing each other and all kinds of things that royal people did back then in medieval days. But his great-grandmother, Matilda, is also a saint. So you here had this saintly woman, 2 generations of typical medieval backstabbing and killing and betraying and sinful stuff, and then out comes St. Henry, 3 generations later, a saintly man. So God crowned that family with his bounty, even if it took from a great-grandmother to a great-grandson. So you get 20 years, you get several generations, and now how God crowned a couple days with his bounty. I've been talking with some staff members at St. Michael the Archangel Parish to track down to get a book that they recommend to people, particularly those people who are not Catholic, who might be interested in at least understanding the Catholic Church more. And it could also be very well helpful for lifelong Catholics. I've never read the book, never heard of it, but it's called The Faith Explained by Leo Tresse. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. But anyway, so one of the staff members at St. Michael's mentioned it to me and said that she would get a copy of it to me. And I assumed they had extra copies at the parish, and she was going to lend me a copy from the parish. And so, since I am leaving tomorrow to go on vacation, I thought, if I could get a hold of that book and read it as part of it during vacation. So she said she was going to give it to somebody else, and then it just never wasn't working, was never connecting. So finally, I called St. Michael yesterday or Thursday and said, look, I'm leaving on Sunday. Is there some way I can get this book? She ended up not having a copy, I guess, that she thought she had. So she went on Amazon to order it, but it didn't get here in time for me to have it by today. So she says to a mutual friend of ours, I need to get a book to Father Chuck. Do you have a copy of it? And the lady said, no, I don't. I've never even heard of that book. Then she looked at her bookshelf, and she said it was like a light was shining on this book in her bookshelf. She just glanced over and there it was on that woman's bookshelf. She had the book, didn't even remember. Maybe her husband bought it, but in any case, she had it. She gave it to the St. Michael's staff member. St. Michael's staff member brought it here this morning after their Saturday morning mass and left it on the door for me. But I didn't know any of that, except that I went to a special event this morning at the parish where our mutual friend goes, and she was there. And so she said to me, I hope you enjoy my copy of the book. and she explained the whole thing, how she did not know she had it. She looked, and there it was, as if it had just materialized on the shelf. God crowned just the 2 or 3 days of the timing for me to get this book so that ideally I can help people who have come to me asking about learning more about Catholicism. So I invite us all, let us trust our God, trust God's timing, trust God's loving wisdom and his wise love